Macronutrients and micronutrients and my intuitive eating process that I've used now for about 10 years, where I don't even count calories or weigh anything, and I've been sub 10% body fat for years now, and it's a much more intuitive approach than your typical fitness bro bodybuilding calorie counting model. Now, I'll first tell you that there's absolutely nothing wrong with counting calories. There's nothing wrong with tracking macros. I think for certain people, it's useful, it's important. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some people get triggered. They're like, "Oh, you're telling me that that's a bad thing?" No, I'm saying you don't have to if you don't want to. I don't want to, so I choose a different method, the superhuman method, where we use intuitive portion sizes. But what I really want to talk to you about today is this concept of macronutrients and micronutrients, because what happens with a lot of people is they just focus on calories and they just focus on macros, so protein, carbohydrates, and fats. For example, I had a couple come to me. They were high-level business people in their 60s. I have a wide range of students. They're usually high achievers, business owners, CEOs, people like that really want to squeeze more out of life, alongside the special operators, Navy SEALs, former Army Rangers, guys like that I work with. So I work with those sort of two hubs, but obviously there's other people that come in the fold as well. But the point being is that this couple, they had a range of different health issues. So they had a lot of arthritis, they had a lot of digestive issues, they just had a lot of internal things going on that a lot of people would chalk up to old age. And they'd been doing the Weight Watchers stuff, they'd been counting their calories and their macros and factoring in all these things, and they were still not feeling very good. And I looked at their nutritional processes, I looked at what they'd been doing, and to their credit, they'd done some things reasonably well, but there was a lot of things in there that were a lot more processed foods, but it still fit their calorie targets for the day. And so they were in this sort of false illusion of, okay, I'm hitting some of my targets with my numbers, why am I not feeling very good? And this is the key, and I need you to understand that. And this, by the way, is a big part of how I was able to get off all my psychiatric medications that I was on for 10 years, and now I've been off for 12. But also just really optimize the quality of my life and really get my blood work better and better over time. One of the things that I've told some of my students is I'm very hypersensitive. So my blood work, when I first started all of this stuff, like the nutritional biohacking with micronutrients and the quality of foods and food sensitivity and all these different things, which sound complicated, but they're really not. I simplify it down for you. But when I first started, my blood work wasn't very good. I was kind of in shape, but my blood work was not very good because I'm very sensitive. And I find that certain people are, stress, their lifestyle, whatever, their insulin sensitivity might not be very good, their cholesterol might be really high, they just have markers in their body that are not ideal. So I had to work really hard over time to really troubleshoot all the different things to get things good. Now, some people, they just have a bit of genetic luck where they tend to fall into these good ranges without having to do so much work, but you still need to understand the basic principles. So the point being with this couple was that what I told them, and you need to understand this, was that it's not just about protein, carbs, and fats and calories. It's about the quality of the food as well. Now, you don't have to be a food purist and say, I can never have that cookie because it's gonna giving me an autoimmune disease or something. But what you do need to understand is that depending where you are on a spectrum, you might have a lot more sensitivities than someone else. So someone with celiac or Crohn's disease, if they just start eating burgers and whatever, they're going to have a far worse reaction than someone else who doesn't have those issues. So first of all, even if someone says, a little bit in moderation is fine, that's not always the case for everyone. So you need to disregard that and recognize that you're different than the next person. You also need to look at how you feel after you consume certain foods. You've got to pay attention to this. So there's an acute response within 30 minutes to a few hours after eating. How does your digestion feel? Are you getting bloated? Are you noticing gas? Are you getting digestive discomfort? that's a big sign that something is not right in your system. That's a more acute response. Then, the next day, how do you feel with your energy levels and your levels of anxiety and mood? I noticed in the past that when I would eat processed foods, that I would wake up and my face would be noticeably more puffy. I had a moon face. A lot of you guys have moon faces, the big swollen face. Not only is it body fat, but it's inflammation. You look terrible, and I looked terrible, and I see it now. So you've got to recognize that face is the window to the soul. And if you are presenting that, that's the first thing people see. What are they deducing about you based off this? You've got to ask yourself that question. As superficial as that sounds, that's the reality of humans. But I noticed that the puffiness, the water retention, but also anxiety would be high, and my mood and energy would be very low. And what it did was it created this feedback where I would future pace how I want to feel. When I'm confronted with eating that donut or eating that thing that's more processed, I'd say, how do I want to feel the next day? And I would walk through a time where I woke up and felt really foggy and puffy. And I just got to a point where, to me, it just wasn't worth it anymore. Now, it doesn't mean that you're perfect all the time, but it means that over time you course correct more and more and more. The take-home point here is that micronutrients, whole foods, is it a food with one ingredient? Like blueberries are just blueberries. Broccoli is just broccoli. Brown rice is just brown rice. Right? So like, if you can take foods that are one ingredient and combine them together in like a macro bowl, or have them as a snack, and you do that 90+% of the time, you are already winning. That's efficient. You're already winning just doing that alone. Now, the other aspect to micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, and this is a very simple concept to understand and remember, is eat the rainbow. I know it sounds kind of corny. It's almost childlike, but simplicity is the key. You know, complexity is the enemy of execution. And so if you can make something very stupid simple, like a child can understand it, anyone can do it. So eat the rainbow. So as long as you don't have food sensitivities and you can tolerate it, with your main meals, where is your green vegetable? Where's your red? Where's your orange? Where's your yellow? So for me, I'll do like beets, helps with nitric oxide production and blood flow. Blood flow helps with recovery and brain function and heart health and all these different things. So that's the red, the beets. I'll do some microgreens, like it's like miniature versions of the fully grown counterparts. Microgreens, gram for gram, have more nutrients and antioxidants than their fully grown counterparts. So gram for gram, I want the thing that's more concentrated. So that way I'm getting more nutrients, more calcium, more nutrition from those greens. And then obviously carrots. You know, carrots is an orange, high in beta carotene, good for eyesight, that type of thing. So again, each vitamin and mineral is driving different functions in the body, and this helps you feel better. It helps you recover faster. It helps with hormone production. It helps with slowing down aging. It helps with recovery with your training. It helps bring down cravings and hunger, so you're not freaking munching all the time. So when you're thinking about your meals, yes, calories are important. If you eat healthy foods, but you're eating 10 avocados a day and you're eating just massive amounts of healthy food, you will get fat. A common thing that people trip up on is trail mix nuts. They'll have handfuls of nuts. They'll eat lots of dried fruit. That stuff's just going to catch you every time. So you've got to be mindful about certain things. But you need to understand that there's two parts of that equation. There's your calories and your macros, protein, carbs, and fats. And there's your micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals, your colors, and your nutrient diversity, and your foods that are like one ingredient. If you combine these two principles together, you are going to win. Now, there is more to it than that. Obviously, it's worth getting things like food sensitivity testing done. If you get some advanced blood work done, or like a hair mineral analysis, you can really then see exactly what's going on in your system to then fine-tune your diet choices based off that. So you're not just guessing. But you don't even need that to start with. But that's the biggest difference, I think, for me versus a lot of the other people in the fitness space that are sort of in my world, is that they'll just focus on macros, but they eat a lot of processed stuff. Now again, I don't care what you do. You do whatever you want to do. If you want to eat all the processed food in the world, go for it. I'm all about freedom and liberty to choose, man. I do not I do not care. But I know that for me personally, if I was eating that way, I would not feel good. I'd feel like very low energy. I'd have a lot of brain fog. I'd probably break out in acne, rashes. I'd be very puffy. I'd feel like shit. And I felt like shit for so long in my life, man. Like, I had so many mental health problems for a decade. I never, ever want to go back there again. Ever. I think in hindsight, a lot of my health problems that I had when I was growing up as a teenager were from my diet. You know, my ADHD, my anxiety, I have really bad skin. The first sign that you know something is wrong internally is if your skin's terrible. And obviously, people say it's hormones with, teenage stuff. And yeah, there is some degree of truth to that. But it's made way worse with a lot of the food sensitivities and a lot of the processed shit that people eat. And then especially all the ADD and ADHD stuff. I mean, don't even get me started down that rabbit hole. Obviously, there's a massive dietary component to that. There's another big part that most people are just not moving enough. They're not getting enough energy out of their system, so they're like festering internally. It's kind of like if you have a dog, you don't exercise the dog, it's going to start chewing the things and digging holes. People are exactly the same. We're all animals. So the point was that I had to understand that food was like software and your body and mind are the hardware. You can either put a good operating system update into your hardware to make it run more efficiently, or you can just keep throwing viruses on there and then everything crashes and the system crashes all the time. That's what you will be experiencing if you're not feeling good. So you got to remember that it's not complicated, but it's more than most people think, and that's why they start to get some results and they keep going backwards, because they don't feel very good as they're trying to improve their health. That's the message today. It's about macronutrients, but it's also about micronutrients. Go out there, eat the rainbow, understand that it's one thing to get in physical shape, to get abs, whatever. But it's another thing entirely to get there physically and feel really, really good internally and mentally in the process. And that is the superhuman method, and that's what you should be aspiring towards.